backfired and people just stopped calling police altogether.
He's taken unprecedented action, mandatory quarantines, very strict travel bans.
On air, online, and live wherever you need us to be.
Good evening, I'm Darby Travers. The top stories on 6 News this hour. Independent MP Zali Steggall has said she would be on board with legislating the Indigenous voice to Parliament, even if it does not get the successful yes vote at the referendum. Steggall is one of several crossbenchers in support of the voice, which will be voted on by the public at a referendum sometime this year. The government says Australians could vote on it as early as August. Australian Olympic hero Peter Bol has maintained his innocence after provisionally being suspended for failing a test for performance-enhancing drugs. Bol said in a statement he has never had any interest in doping drugs and has handed over electronics to Sports Integrity Australia to prove this. He also says he has requested the analysis of his B sample, which will take place next month. And the federal opposition leader says he is worried there will be a tragedy in Alice Springs as he calls for the federal government to take more action on crime. Peter Dutton has told the media the crisis is a national disgrace, while local Mayor Matt Patterson says the government declined his request for assistance from the federal police or the army. Earlier this week, Alice Springs Mayor Matt Patterson made the plea for immediate assistance from the federal government, calling for resources to be rolled out, including the federal police or army. The NT government says they do not want the town to become a police state. That is 6 News for this hour. There is more news 24/7 on our website, SIXNewsAU.com, and on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Lit. Just search 6NewsAU to find us. I'm Darby Travers. More news coverage continues right after this.
Well, we all thought the Victorian election was over. There is still one seat to go. Narracan in regional Victoria is the last seat that has not voted in the state election, at least in the lower house. They did vote in the upper house. That, of course, was because a Nationals candidate, Sean Gilchrist, died after the close of nominations for candidates, but before the actual election on November 26th. That means a rare supplementary election has had to occur. Now, we all know what a by-election is, pretty well known, but a supplementary election is something we really do not see. They're pretty similar to a by-election, but there is one difference. It is an election that, according to the AEC federally, one that must be held if a candidate for a House of Reps election in the period between close of nominations and polling day dies. In short, in Victoria at least, if a candidate dies before 6 p.m. on election day, the election for that district is declared failed. And that is what has happened in this case. There was a pretty infamous supplementary election in 1999 in Frankston East when the sitting member actually died on election day. And that actually ended up being a major contributor into who formed government. It ended up being Labor taking it from the Kennett Liberal government. But Narracan here, well, it was expected to say Liberal. It had a Liberal MP retiring. There is no Labor candidate running. There is no Nationals candidate running. The question is, who will be the one to take on the Liberal candidate Wayne Farnham? Could it be the independent, one of many independents, but could it be Tony Wolff? Could it be the Greens? Or could it be one of the many other minor parties running? You've got Animal Justice, the Liberal Democrats, the DLP. We shall see. And we actually spoke to independent candidate Tony Wolff about why he has put his hand up once again to run in Narracan. Great to have you here. So, look, you were a candidate for the initial election here in Narracan, which didn't last that long until, you know, it was declared failed due to obviously the Nationals candidate dying under, you know, it was extraordinary circumstances. But you've put your hand back up for this election where there are quite a lot of candidates, though notably no National, no Labor. Why put your hand back up?
Yeah, look, I think, to be perfectly honest, I think the fact that Labor is not running a candidate reinforced my reason for running, and that's to give a true community voice for the electorate. I think that we've been such a safe Liberal seat for so long, and we've been neglected because of that. And I think that an independent, honestly, is the only one that could probably work collaboratively with a Labor government to get things happening for our electorate. I don't think they're going to work with a Liberal backbencher that's in opposition, and I think that to get true representation for our community, an independent's really the only way to do it. So I ran in the previous election, yes, rather late rather late in the process, I guess, and that was because we looked through the candidates and didn't think that there was anybody there that was truly independent representing the community. They were all party aligned, and so that was the reason why I stuck my hand up in the first place, and I'm committed to it from then, and I think that the community will support an unbiased voice to represent them.
Of course, the thing is, unlike what many people were thinking going into the November state election, we don't have a minority government. Labor's got a very clear majority. And of course, the real areas they have to negotiate is, of course, in the upper house. You're obviously running in the lower house. That goes without saying. If you are elected, are you actually going to be able to do anything with the government? Because, you know, put simply, they don't need your number. They don't need you to pass anything in the lower house. Their members can't even, you know, cross the floor. And as I said, the majority is not a slim one either. So are you actually going to be able to do anything in terms of collaboration with the Labor government, if, of course, you are elected?
Yeah, look, I really believe that I'll be able to. They'll be interested in this seat, particularly if it's held independently or the margin is brought in much closer than it has been in the past. Labor's going to be very interested in this seat. And as I've previously stated, I think that an independent's the only person that they are going to be prepared to work with. They're not going to be prepared to work with any other parties. And I'm not saying that I'm going to fold to all of their policies. That the beauty of an independent is you get to have a conscience vote on every decision that's there. But I do believe that I'll be able to work with the Labor government to get some action happening for us in this electorate.
Now, obviously, you are a local. Have you, you know, been speaking to locals, and are they, you know, actually aware there is this supplementary election again? You know, it's in January. A lot of people are taking time off, and given how decisive the election results were, I mean, we found them out within just a few hours on the night. You know,
Yeah.
It seems like people have just kind of moved on from that chapter in Victoria's political history. But as you know, we all know here, there is that one seat that you're running in that has been left vacant until, you know, in a few weeks.
And look, there's a lot of disinterest, I would say, within the community. They've had to vote too many times in recent past, and it's the middle of the holiday season, and I understand that people are frustrated having to come out and vote yet again. Look, I'm not sure that there's obviously as much awareness that of the election taking place as there was definitely in November. It's really hard to get the word out to people. A lot of people are saying that they didn't know they had to vote again. They've already voted once. They thought that they don't have to vote again. So it's really important for us to get that message out so that their vote actually counts and they can get we're unrepresented at the moment. And I think it's really important for people to come out and make a valid vote. And yeah, it's difficult though. You are correct.
Yeah, and of course, we did have people in Narracan having to vote in the upper house, so already gone to the polls once, and that whole mess, and we've dealt with that. Can I ask, obviously, being on the ground there, because I know there was an article in the Age that I think mentioned there was a billboard for the Liberal candidate. Is there much or any electoral signage, being that your own or of other candidates? And there quite a few are a few other candidates, many minor parties who are running here, without, of course, Nationals and Labor putting
Look,
what's it like there on the ground?
Yeah, so there's a bit of signage out and about. Obviously, I don't have the budget of a political party, so I'm funding myself. I'm not taking donations because I want to remain truly independent. So there is quite a lot of signage out there from certain political parties that are running. Myself, I've got signage out and about, and yeah, look, I'm doing what I can with my limited funds. But yeah, and I think people respect that fact also that I don't have the big political machine behind me to do the advertising and get out there. But I've got signs out and about, and we've gone for a little bit of a funky logo to change it up a bit, rather than just to try and make a point of difference. And it seems to be working. I've spent the morning so far on the polling booth, and people are saying, "Oh, I've seen your signs around. They look fantastic," and things like that. So there is a bit happening, and there's a lot of interest out. A lot of the other candidates, like I know I was late to the party the first time around, but this time around we ended up with 11 candidates, and a lot of those didn't run in the last election. So they're new candidates and have come on board from parties in the dying stages of the registration. So it'll be interesting to see how the public responds to that, and whether they'll get much support. Some of them are not local, so it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that.
Yeah, that'll be really interesting, because I know, I think the big contest might be to see who's going to get up on that two-party preferred or two-candidate preferred. We know it's obviously not going to be Labor, who you'd initially think of the obvious one. We know it's not going to be the Nationals, so the question is, could it be an independent like yourself? Could it be the Greens? Or, given in nearby electorates there was that somewhat strong right-wing minor party vote, there are, I think, off the top of my head, Liberal Democrats, Family First, One Nation all running here. So that's going to be really interesting. Just quickly on Labor, were you surprised by their decision not to run?
I was a little bit, because in the last election they polled 35% of the vote. So the diehard Labor supporters, they would be a bit disappointed that they don't have a candidate to support. But that's saying that they're also going to be looking for somebody else to vote for if they don't want to vote Liberal. They're not likely to do the complete flip and vote Liberal, so they're going to be looking for somebody else to vote for. And look, I'd like to think that I can offer that opportunity to them, that I'll be able to work with their party in the best interests of our community.
Yeah, and I know traditionally when Labor, and of course we have a Nationals candidate, although now not running, which adds an extra thing to the mix. But I know traditionally when Labor doesn't run in a by-election, or in this case a supplementary election, it seems the Greens seem to go up there and do well. So are you going to have to be specifically appealing Labor voters, or appealing to Labor voters, or what? Because obviously inevitably you will need to get some Liberal votes as well, with those
Oh,
preferences, and then of
correct.
course the
Yeah.
many minor parties that we're also seeing in the mix who are on the.
So look, I hope that the I hope that the electorate's smart enough to realise that that Liberal are in opposition, and they're in opposition by a huge, a huge majority of Labor in the seat. So a Liberal candidate's going to be virtually ineffectual in Parliament. So yes, I think a lot of Liberal voters might consider that and say, well, we're not going to be able to achieve much from opposition. So some of them may read into that an independent can represent us better. The Labor voters, obviously, they'll be looking that, as you mentioned, the Greens vote will probably be elevated. And I hope to appeal to all of those as an unbiased representative. And I know I keep banging on about it, but a true community representative that's willing to listen and engage in the wishes of the community, and raise those issues at that level. So
yeah, I mean, I know you said there that a Liberal MP would be ineffective. I mean, again, you can make the same argument about you as a crossbencher with a majority government in place. It's not the same as where we could have a minority, and of course, it's not the same as in the upper house where there is a balanced power that is needed to pass legislation at the moment. I mean, we could just use that same argument on yourself.
Yeah, correct, and that's a perfectly sound argument to make, except that I believe that the Labor government would be more prepared to work with an independent than they would be a Liberal candidate.
Yeah, but what would they work with you on? Because they don't need you to pass legislation. I'm just wondering actually how they would work with you on.
So one of the major issues for our electorate, which keeps coming up time and time again, both sides of the Liberal and Labor are both committed funding for a new West Gippsland hospital, which is well and good. So we need to make sure that happens. But a new hospital building is pointless without the services that go with it. And so one of my strong advocacy moves would be to try and advocate for the services to go with the new hospital. I'm a cancer survivor myself. I had to go to Melbourne for my treatment. So I know full well the lack of services we have in this region, and it's not just about a new hospital building. We've got some significant issues behind the scenes. We've got one of the highest levels of domestic violence in Victoria, which nobody wants to talk about. It's uncomfortable, but we need services to support that. Our mental health, we need some services to support that, which all are part of a new hospital. But we need to we need to be advocating for the issues that are important to the community. Obviously, our area is growing exponentially in population growth, and our services aren't keeping up. Our infrastructure is not keeping up. So we need to be advocating for those things as well. And I do think that the major parties, they're probably not aware of what the important issues are to the community, and so that's where I hope to be able to raise those issues with a Labor government if I can get elected.
Yeah, just finally, and this might be me banging on about it since I follow elections a lot. But do you acknowledge that you are a bit of a small way part of history here, given how very, very rare these supplementary elections are, to the point of the fact that many people don't know what one is. Like, it's never before seen. And, given, as we've discussed this entire interview, no Labor, no national running, that definitely elevates you somewhat.
I definitely feel that the eyes of Victoria and possibly the nation are definitely on this election. Given it's also a bit of a slow news time of the year, everybody's away on holidays and stuff like that, so So the media is really interested in what's happening here, which is a good thing because it raises the profile of our electorate. As I said, we've been forgotten for a long time. Now we've got the opportunity to get out there and raise awareness of our region.
That was Tony Wolff, independent candidate for the seat of Narracan. Again, one of 3 independent candidates running. We also spoke to Austin Cram. He's an Animal Justice Party candidate for the seat. He ran in the state election back in November and he's here again to promote the party. We asked him about why he has decided to run and whether he actually has any expectations of being the first ever lower house Animal Justice Party MP anywhere in Australia.
I think I don't want to say it's over until it's over. I obviously I ran as the upper house candidate for Eastern Victoria, and so I watched all of those seats quite closely. And as we saw in some areas such as Bass and Hastings, some of those seats were pegged to go one way and maybe didn't go quite as far as expected. And same with Pakenham as well. So I really think that as useful as polling is, you should never say it's over until it's over.
I mean, fair enough. That was the thing I was repeating right throughout the state election. We don't want to always go with the polls or yada, yada, yada. But one interesting thing I noticed is when we did speak to then MP Andy Medic before the election, and he was speaking about why you guys were running in all, off the top of my head, 88 Legislative Assembly seats. Yep. The message was basically, we're not really expecting to win, but we know it's going to help boost our upper house vote. And fair enough, you did win in Northern Victoria. But obviously now there is no upper house election right now. There's not going to be a state election here till 2026. There's not going to be a federal election till 2025. What's the point in running in a supplementary election like this?
Well, I think obviously it would be absolutely fantastic if I could be the first lower house MP for the Animal Justice Party. But I think it's important to put animals on the agenda and put our other policy platforms on the agenda by running. I think it's really important to show as well that we are a serious party. We're here for the long term. We're not a single issue party that shows up at election time only. We're going to continue to be here, and we're going to continue to be here into the long, long future.
And fair enough. I mean, you can probably understand why some might think you're a single issue party just based on your name. But what do you guys offer in terms of policies outside of, animal justice?
Well, yeah, and our slogan as a party, or our motto, is animals, people, planet, and we really try to see everything through those 3 dimensions. And I think what we offer specifically is, at our core, we have 4 values, which is kindness, equality, rationality, and non-violence. And we use that to decide every policy decision we make. And it's what our MPs use if they're making a decision outside of what we have policy guidance on. So I think we offer a different kind of politics. Sort of we try to distance ourselves from what some might term petty politics and show that by working together we can actually get good things accomplished.
Now, look, obviously pre-polling only started the other day, but I was speaking to independent Tony Wolff about this. And it seems a lot of people in Narracan who obviously did vote in the upper house back in November, aren't actually aware that they're voting this month. Is that your experience too? Do people actually realize there's an election?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to claim that I've run in all the circles, but certainly when I've been emailing supporters of our party, some of them have been surprised that there's another election, whether that's the VEC is still getting out there with their communication or whether it's something else. Obviously, hopefully everyone votes, and the VEC really has a duty to make sure everybody knows of their responsibility to get out there and vote by January 28th. So hopefully.
Yeah. Can I just ask also from your perspective, what did you make of Labor's decision not to run? Because my understanding is from some people I've been speaking to that because Labor actually does have a pretty decent enough vote in Narracan, that just not happy because they might not have won, but you've now got all these Labor supporters who are looking for somewhere to vote. Maybe they'll vote for the Animal Justice Party.
Yeah, and really, I can't speak to the decisions that another party makes. I think we're making a conscious decision, like we did at the state election. We wanted to run in all 88 seats because we wanted to give that option to every single Victorian to vote for us, and we want to continue to provide that option where we can. So I can't speak to why the Labor Party made that decision, but I can speak to why the Animal Justice Party has decided to show up regardless.
And Six News also spoke to Alyssa Weaver, who ran in the seat as the Greens candidate in November. She's, of course, running again. We asked her why, especially, given that traditionally when Labor doesn't run in a by-election, or in this case a supplementary election, the Greens seem to increase their vote pretty heavily.
Look, I want to make sure that, when we're coming into this supplementary election, that people have an option for a progressive vote. So making sure that people can come down and vote and have that progressive option to make sure that we'll have a fair future.
And look, obviously, Labor's not running here, and traditionally, when Labor does run in a by-election, or in this case it's a supplementary election, minor parties, including yourselves, the Greens, seem to do pretty well. Are you hopeful that you're going to be able to, well, obviously, I'm sure you'd like to gain votes from everywhere, gain some of those Labor voters who will, might have nowhere to vote, and they're actually looking for someone to vote for in this case?
Yeah, definitely. We've seen during early voting that's just started this week, we've seen people coming up, letting us know that they are traditionally Labor voters and having a good chat. And also the other minor parties and independents are getting that chance to have a talk as well. So I definitely think we will see that coming out of this election.
And I was just going to ask, were you surprised by their decision not to run? Because I know it's caught some Labor people by surprise, and I heard their candidate apparently was happy to run again. So what did you make of that?
Yeah, look, definitely surprised and definitely disappointed. With 30 to 35% of our community as Labor voters that we've seen in the past, that's who's being let down here. And yeah, I'm very disappointed in it. But I would say surprised, and I know that Justin, who did run in the first election, he did want to go again. So once again, it's really disappointing. We might be known as a strong Liberal seat, but that shouldn't matter when it comes to democracy. People need their options there, and they definitely need hope as well. So I'm glad to be here, even though Labor aren't.
Now, I've been speaking to some other candidates, independent Tony Wolfe, Austin Cram from Animal Justice, and the thing that both of them seem to be saying is there are quite a lot of people not aware that there is an election in just a few days. What's your experience? Are people aware that they're having to vote? Because I know they did have to vote in the upper house, but are they aware that they're going to have to vote, late January, people still on holidays? What's the situation there?
Yeah, look, I think that even when we're looking at our volunteers and stuff like that, people are still on holidays from Christmas, and we do see that happening. Look, I've got to say we have had quite a few people coming through in these first couple of days, but I think you're very right there. A lot of people don't know what's happening, and a lot of young people, I know people around me, they only know it's on because they know me. But apart from that, yeah, a lot of people don't know what's happening. If you're not someone who's reading the news every day, you might not have a clue. And it came on very fast, and we're only a week and a half away now. So
yeah, and I was also going to just go on to that because obviously pre-polling, it started, and there are quite a few parties running, many who either weren't running last time, just trying to get some votes. Some really small, pretty random minor parties are all in this race, like DLP, Family First. Have you seen any of them actually active, or is it just at this rate looking like more of just the name on the ballot paper type of thing?
Yeah, look, they are pretty active and they're down here on the pre-polls. But yeah, we have a lot of people coming through and saying, hey, like, you know, I know what's going on because, you know, I live here and we've just had the election. So sort of still having them ideas and they're probably being a little bit left behind because, you know, everyone was really focused during the election last year, that they've made up their minds already. And we have seen people coming through and letting us know that. So not needing any paper or anything. But yeah, some are active and some aren't. Yeah.
Alright, so of course Narracan decides the final seat, the 88th seat in the Victorian Legislative Assembly, still to be decided. We've got live results, updates and special coverage on our website. Just go to SIXNewsAU.com and of course watch us live on YouTube for free whenever you want. Subscribe to us, click all notifications, you will not miss a thing. I'm Leonardo Puglisi, thanks for tuning in.
When news breaks here in the United States, 6 News has got you covered. From the big political stories to what's being talked about on the ground, we'll keep you informed with up-to-the-minute reporting and exclusive stories.
President Trump's endorsement is the biggest endorsement in all of politics, period.
And that's the challenge, right? That's exactly the challenge, Stuart.
Hopefully this doesn't backfire and people just stop calling police altogether.
He's taken unprecedented action, mandatory quarantines, very strict travel bans.
On air, online, and live wherever you need us to be.
If you are elected as Prime Minister, can you promise to own up to mistakes and factual inaccuracies if you make them? And would you be willing to come back on 6 News?
I certainly would. That would be a pleasure. And I think we've seen during the campaign, I made a mistake. I fessed up to it, said it was a mistake, didn't try to blame someone else. I think that's really important. With the high office of Prime Minister comes responsibility. And one of my